going on, everyone? I'm excited about today's guest because it's a personal friend of mine, someone that and it's beyond friend, is brother. We've been working together for
decade, probably more.
so crazy. So when I got into community work and youth work, Andy existed before me. He was in high school, and from there we got to make a relationship. He knew my wife, and we all had respect for this woman, Carol Island, who is also a pioneer. And so this is a relationship that we've just existed, and we're glad to have a guest. You just got an award in Lawrence. Whoa.
Not expected at all.
How did you even hear about that?
I was at the March of the Brides. It's a march for this woman who was murdered on her wedding day by her ex-boyfriend. And people come out in the community and they wear, bridal gear and, groom stuff. And we represent for that person. And there was a woman there, I believe her name is Lynette Perez, who had mentioned to me, oh, I think they want to give you something, but I didn't know. I didn't hear again about it. I said, oh, good idea, but whatever. I'm not used to like getting awards and stuff like that. Didn't pay no mind. And like 3 days before the thing, I'm sitting around and I get this email like, oh, you've been selected. And this lady calls me and said like, hey, we want you to come down on Tuesday. Mind you, I was in Texas. So I was like, I had to change my flight, all that kind of stuff, because I felt it was important to show up for my city. My city was showing up for me. And I got to represent. And it was really heartwarming because, after over 20 years of doing this work, sometimes it's nice to get a little carrot or something at the end.
Woo! Now listen, before and Mike, so Mike's meeting Andy.
This is probably what maybe my second time.
Yeah,
because we met before when your wife Katrina was campaigning for city council.
Gotcha.
And I think we just met in passing.
Yeah,
but I know because the way Katrina is, like, there's a lot of community organizers surrounding her. Like you kind of surround yourself with like the same type of people. So even though I didn't know that much about you, I was excited about this because I'm like, oh, okay, I get to meet somebody else in the space. And Dennis has been talking about quite a bit. So
it's a pleasure. It's a pleasure to come on here because, this, I feel like is important. We don't have a lot of platforms for us to have conversation and just kind of chill. It's not like a stuffy space. So I appreciate that.
Listen, man. So quick question. Lawrence. So Lawrence gave you an award. You don't live in Lawrence anymore, but so for people that don't know you, there's probably a lot of people in both of our networks that don't know about you and don't understand, like, why are these guys connected? So I got to be involved with Lawrence at a young age, but you're from Lawrence. So for people that don't know Lawrence, when did you move, or what's your earliest memories of Lawrence?
Well, I was born and raised in Lawrence. I remember being a little guy, walking around and just being around all the Latino flavors, smells, sounds. Wake up in the morning, the salsa's playing because mom's doing hair and cleaning. So it was, for me, it was like it always has been, right? And always will be home, even if I don't live there right now. I live like, I could spit to Lawrence. I live in Methuen, right next to Lawrence. So it was quite an experience because I felt like I had the best of both worlds, right? I'm in the United States. I was born here, but I still got all the Latino roots. My mom never allowed me to lose that, right? She was like, in the house, you speak Spanish. You're gonna be speaking English all out there in school, in the community, all that kind of stuff. So like, I can't sit here and say it was all roses and flowers because there was some violence going on. Maybe not that I saw it in my house, but I knew it was happening. That kind of deal. So I don't know if subconsciously that led my path to working in the domestic violence field, because I did that for a while in the beginning of my career, and then I went to schools, and then I left the schools and I went back to working with domestic violence. So something just called me back to that work. But I think domestic violence can be looked at in many ways, right? There's community domestic violence, right? There's partners domestic violence. So we've seen a lot of that stuff, and growing up, I gotta say I was pretty protected, right? Older guys back then, that kind of behavior wasn't allowable. You were hanging out on the block, your big brother saw you, Get off the block. What are you doing here? You know, I feel like the whole environment has changed and the atmosphere has changed where all these things are allowable and permissible now by older guys. And we got to get back to the root. And, you know, I feel like guys like us, we grew up in that era. And there's a lot of other guys in there that we're still not cool with that stuff. And like, where are the men, right? Where are the men who are trying to empower our young men to be like productive young men?
I got a question. So, thank you for sharing all of that. But you were saying that like in the time you were living in Lawrence, you were aware of the violence, but you weren't like subjected to it, at least not intentionally or directly, right?
Correct.
But then you found yourself working to help out in domestic violence and also in schools. So if you never experienced it yourself directly, what drew you to want to work in that field and help people in those ways?
So when I say directly, I will say in my early age, like happening to me, but I had a cousin who I say is my brother, Julio. He was involved in all kinds of crap, right?
Mm-hmm.
So dudes come to the house looking for him. We'd be walking, yo, there's a guy, oh, there's a fight. Some dudes, you know, just problems, right? Problematic environment. And I didn't want that. Like, it was cool. I had tons of friends. I'm very fortunate that I still have a nice big group of friends. But at the same time, I saw how everybody was resolving issues. And I was like, yo, I don't want to go to jail. Right? My brother had done some time. I guess I had some friends that got locked up. I got some friends that are no longer here with us. And I said, I'm not doing that. And I don't know what it was. And I could tell you one point in my life that kind of triggered that was when I got myself in trouble. Right? I'm 17 years old, walking down the street. You know, back in the days, it was easy, and even now too, but everybody had a gun. Walking down the street, some guy said something disrespectful to one of my friends. I turned around, pulled the thing out in the middle of freaking Lawrence Street like an idiot. And police come out of everywhere. And I go to jail. And I remember my mom saying, not you. Not you, not you, not you.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, seeing my mom suffer through my cousin, because for her, that was her son also, I didn't want to put her through that. And that broke my heart, right? And I had to do some serious repair work there. I didn't realize at the time that's what I needed to do.
Mm-hmm.
I won't lie, the probation did help because she wasn't like a strong, like, mean probation officer. You know, back in the day, you didn't go to jail. Like, you were 16, 17, they gave you a break. You go, you know, you do 2 years probation, then you do you get a quaff, continuous without a finding, and you're good. As long as you do everything you're supposed to do. And she was more like encouraging, like, I know you're smart. I faked my whole way through high school. Like, she thought I was enrolled in school. I'd be like, I dropped out. Nobody knew. I used to make up projects and bring it to probation.
Yeah.
I'm in school. But she was also like, damn, I told you were smart. And I finished my probation and like, I don't ever want to do that again.
Mm.
I hated being under control of somebody else who's not my mom, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a thing with me where I wanted to do something different. And I think that's where that rooted from.
Okay.
Now, early Lawrence, just to give context to that question, can you talk about like so the street culture? Like, so the street culture of Lawrence when you were coming up is what, LTS?
Yep, I was licensed to steal.
So pause, explain that, because people aren't gonna know what was licensed to steal.
So licensed to steal was a brotherhood basically back in those days where dudes their whole thing was stealing vehicles and lots of them, right? And it was so.
But wasn't it a sport, if we're being honest? And I'm just trying to say, like,
Yeah.
it wasn't like a criminal, like, oh, we're gonna.
Yeah, you had this guy who took this many, and then this guy would be like, yeah, I'm gonna take this many.
It was a sport.
And then like you go behind Central Catholic High School, and there was tons of freaking cars parked right there, and they were all stolen.
Right.
And it was like a competition, like who can steal more cars within that group. And then other groups began to do the same thing. I was a little guy when all that was going on. I was on the outskirts. My brother was doing a lot of that stuff. Again, I said my brother, he's my cousin, but like I love that dude, man. As crazy as he is, that's my brother. And you know, he kind of exposed me to a lot of that stuff. Not in a negative way, like you do that, but like this is what could happen if you mess around.
Yeah, so I just want to speak from my experience. So this is where I fall in love with Lawrence. So a lot of people don't know, I lived at the bottom of Prospect and used to go up Prospect Hill to the middle school. My mother and my father got their first apartment over there. So that's when we first started. Back then, you used to have like a movement of house churches. Like people would meet up in your house, and all the kids would be in the room, and they'd be worshiping. So we met this Latin family, and they had a kid around my age. It's the first time I got put on to like all the colognes on the bureau.
Yes.
Right, like they were shrines.
Yep.
And I jumped into that fad. But anyways, I remember going into, I'm not gonna say the person's name, into their room, and they had the Dempola, and they were in that wave.
Yep.
And that's why I say it was a sport, because to me that guy was like a Marvel superhero.
Yeah.
What I would consider now, like watching these guys, it was like that was Thor, Superman.
Correct.
And we would talk about it like, yo, Dad's cool, but this dude is crazy, you know? So I want to put that layer, like that's where I remember. So that became a huge thing. And then what happened, like, what did it transition into?
Well, somebody shot a gun. Right? Everything was all fun and games when people used to just throw their hands up and, boom, solve the problem, shake hands, we're done. At least my earliest recollection, I'm pretty sure back in the days, even before LTS, Latin Gustavo's, there was a big movement in Lawrence too, in the late 70s.
But that's that's before you.
That's before me. But that kind of ignited this wave of the Warriors came out, when that movie The Warriors came out.
Yep.
So everybody wanted to be in some kind of clique, gang, some type of thing, right? And I just remember it was all fun and games until somebody got killed.
Okay.
Right? And we were coming out, I remember coming out of the Oliver School. We used to always go in front of the library and hang out because the high school guys were there and we're going to go hang out with our high school buddies. And I don't know what happened. It was over a woman, a young woman, and somebody who just got killed.
So this is 80s, 90s?
This is late 80s.
Okay.
When, this individual was murdered in front of the library, it almost like ignited a wildfire.
So it divides. It divided
the community.
Where did it divide?
Because there was two different sets of people
Okay.
that were involved in this thing, where one guy was from one side and the other guy was from the other side, and somebody ended up dead.
Okay.
And that became a big.
So I have two thoughts, but I think you need to clarify the sides because people who aren't familiar with Lawrence, explain that.
So basically, gang affiliations.
Okay.
In those days, it was two different gangs that were involved in this situation, but really it was just two individuals, right?
Okay.
And then that becomes a thing because if I'm hanging with Dennis and there's a problem, you best believe you're gonna have a problem with me too, right? So that kind of just continued, right? And it grew into something that got out of control.
Yeah. And I appreciate that because some people will limit it to like north side, south side, like what you're
That's
saying.
what I was thinking too. Yeah.
But that's not true.
No.
Because like there were, like he's saying, if you know, like there were people on north side that was still connected to his point to the other family, and they weren't cool. And there were still people on south side that was, but there were larger.
It's such a small. It was such a small city that you end up having brothers on different sides of things.
Yeah.
Right. I was in that situation with two of my friends where one brother was down with one clique and the other brother was down with another, and there was always some kind of fight in the house. We go visit and these dudes be fighting, and I'm like, yo, but you guys are brothers, man. I didn't really understand the concept of what was really going on at that time. I thought it was cool. I thought like, oh, I'm down with these guys. I never had to be in a gang really. Like I just used to mention my bro and be like, all right, like leave this guy alone. But I had a whole bunch of friends who, it's like 15 of us who we lived in the neighborhood on Heritage Commons, so right off of Jackson Street in Lawrence. It was like the first fancy projects, right? Because it was still projects, but it was fancy. It was nice. It was brand new. And we kind of took over that area, and we were like, we ain't gonna let nobody come in here and mess with us, right? So people used to come, and sometimes we have some problems. But we lived that. We subconsciously we got caught up in that lifestyle. Because then it was like, okay, so you're going to be a tough guy. Now you got to be a tough guy all the time.
Right.
Right? So guns, got involved, drugs. My mom was not aware. I felt terrible. Like looking back, I felt terrible because my mom wasn't aware of any of this stuff. Like, in my house was the house, right?
Yeah.
So my mom worked 2 jobs. She go to work. I would go out the front door and come back in the back door. I'm not in school. I'm doing all kinds of stuff. And we had this brotherhood that was the amazing piece. That it was just like, yo, anything for you, bro. And if we shared sandwiches, we had to eat dirt. We ate dirt together, right? And that really gave me a sense of what having a family outside of your home
Yeah.
was, right? Because these guys we were together 24/7.
Yeah.
Can I ask you a question before? Because I know you're gonna ask a question.
I have a good one. All right, go ahead.
All right. I'm assuming you all never understood that you were going to become like famous in the community and that was going to spiral to another generation beyond you guys' control.
We couldn't even see that, right?
All right. But can you give context to that? Like, so because my point is there's such a big story, but we just started, right? There was this LTS thing.
Mhm.
There was these guys you were looking up to.
Mhm.
You guys get involved. You create your own little space to protect your community, your own brotherhood.
Mhm.
And now I'm pushing it way back where he'll probably bring it back with his question. But my whole point is that after that happened, I know a new generation of kids are the ones that created what he's talking about, the sides. Because it was that next generation that came up and like, that's, we're this, and this is our whole side. They had a bigger... So how did it go from, you get what I'm saying? And how do you guys deal with that? Because now you guys are the first guys that kind of everyone looks up to, but now there's other kids that have...
Yeah, so we kind of started that whole thing, right? Near the end there when we started to like really act up, right? Like no yellow on our side. Like it became a sides thing after a while because it was like those guys over there wear yellow or this guy wear blue or whatever the color was, right? And we were like, we're in this culture now, we have to stand on our own, right? And
which was stupid.
Correct. And us not being an official gang, it was bad. Like we were like having problems with everybody because we were not down with gang, except that we had these big brother 2 gangs that took care of us, right? Our cousins, our brothers, they were all involved in this stuff. So it was like we didn't have to, but we can act like it. If that makes sense, right? And it was just like then we weren't acting, right? And then people got guns. Then people got involved. Then people went to jail. Then people got killed. So you grow up, and I look back, and we kind of gave permission to these young guys to continue doing this stuff. And I could say that our generation was more permissible with the young people. We didn't take the young guys off the block. Like, I know when I was on the block, my brother or any of my brother's friends saw me. So, yo, what you doing here?
Right.
You shouldn't be here. Unemployment was a big thing, right? We used to go to unemployment. It was this big parking lot and late night, and everybody went to hang out there. Young guys, not so much. If you were young, older people be like, get the heck out of here. What are you doing here? But, we sneak and we do, and it was cool to like watch this thing. People literally steal cars, do smoke shows and crazy stuff, and people just hanging out. But it was that sense of community still. It was crazy because amongst all that violence and all that stuff that was happening, you still felt safe because it was your community, right? And those guys right there were going to take care of you.
Right.
And it changed with our generation.
Yeah.
So this question I have, it's going to go in a different direction, but it's related. And this is actually purely by circumstance. So I had a friend, I'm not going to name his name, but he was telling me about his parents. And he said his parents used to live in Lawrence. And you mentioned the time frame in which this one individual by the high school near the library got shot. You said it was in the late 80s. And he was saying to me, because he's a younger guy, I think he's like in his young 20s, he didn't understand why his parents left Lawrence. And he said his parents left Lawrence in the late 80s. And now it makes me think, and I guess for further context, this is a white individual. These are white individuals. I know other people who are white who left around the same time. So for me, like understanding when they left, now I have a little bit of an understanding, but were you aware of that dynamic of like, okay, you guys are having like this, you're building up this brotherhood, but it's expanded out into kind of like gang activity, where you're stealing these cars and then even going further to like, harming people. But were you aware of all these other people like existing in Lawrence at the same time and how they thought and how they felt and how did that transform the city into the 90s?
When you're young, you don't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
right? You just do you. You're just out there and you're trying to like just survive. And just to be clear, like we didn't steal cars, right? This was an older group of men.
Right.
We were the guys who kind of like we
Looked
looked up to these guys, right?
Exactly.
And we kind of emulated them, right? But we didn't actually do some of the stuff, right?
It
But
was
then we were
fair.
forced to do some stuff.
Well, I was also to say, to be fair, you reiterated multiple times. You don't, as being the younger people of the group, you were told, "Hey, what are you doing?
Correct.
Stay away," because they knew what they were doing, and they didn't want you guys to be involved.
Well, can I jump in there? So for me, who, I had a juvenile past. When you're in a system, right, and there's nothing to do, like it's sometimes like, like getting a dent puller. Watch, I'm gonna go steal this car. Watch the corner. That's a trust thing.
Mhm.
I don't know this guy from a hole in the wall. We just out here navigating a community where clearly no one cares about us. So we meet, right? And he's like, yo, you want to get this money? And you're like,
Yep.
yes, I do. So my whole point is, I'm just giving the context because I understand people might think, oh, people steal cars. They're evil people. It's not that. A lot of times people weren't looking to harm nobody. You're just in a desperate situation.
I think you labeled it perfectly earlier. It was like a sport.
It was, and then but my point is that's the other element that like where people get in court and they're like, no, I didn't do that, right? Because it's a sport. It's not like you weren't raised. I was never, from my grandfather, I was raised on the context of understanding obligation to the country and I learned a lot of that more later once I had the privilege of being in a stable place where you can even digest that.
Yeah.
So.
I feel like I benefited because I learned from what other dudes were doing, right? I had it right in front of me, so I knew where to take a left where I needed to like do that because it's not safe for me to take that right? And making informed decisions came a little bit later after like that incident when I was 17. I think that's when my life a little bit transformed because again, I felt super guilty for my mom seeing her suffer. And then I got an opportunity.
Yeah.
I never realized I like to work with kids. There was a summer fair, there were my projects, and they were like, yo, I saw you playing baseball with the kids. You're good with them. And I was like, yeah, I have fun with them. I like to see them smile, all that kind of stuff. I was maybe like 16 or something at that time, right after I got in trouble. So I had to say, this thing happened to me because, it's on your record or whatever. And the lady gave me an opportunity to work with kids. And that was dope. I fell in love with young people and just being with them and giving them a safe space, right? I felt like I had a purpose. And then my heart broke again because no funding, the program went away. I'm back at square one, right? I'm back on the block trying to do this thing and trying to make some money and,
Yeah, so that's sort of so in my head, I'm sort of building this narrative. Like how did I've worked in Lawrence briefly in my time. My mom used to work in Lawrence at one point. So I have some familiarity there. And once again, I'm thinking about these people who left, right?
Correct.
In my mind, I know exactly why they left. That's white flight.
Correct.
It happened when I used to live in Dorchester too. And but I think it's very interesting that you point out that when you were given an opportunity and there was resources for that opportunity, you picked a completely different path that was positive.
Correct.
That actually helped the community. And as soon as that went away, you went back to, for what better for worse, what worked for you in that moment.
Correct.
But that's the story for a lot of people in that community.
Yeah.
So you could make a strong argument that a lot of people maybe would have not left if those resources were applied early and if leadership identified, hey, we have a problem and we're going to address that problem instead of ignoring it.
Yes.
And then letting other people who, for better or for worse, have their own personal resources to leave, to up and leave, and then leaving the city to kind of fend for itself.
And that's pretty much what they did. Like Lawrence became a big abandoned building city for a while. I mean, there was abandoned buildings everywhere in Lawrence because the exodus, right? And nobody can buy those buildings because nobody knew about credit and people weren't informed and that kind of stuff. Back in those days, the Latinos that were coming here, very few had a home. I was super fortunate that my aunt bought a 3-decker and we lived in that 3-decker and it was 20 people in one apartment. Well, 17 people in one apartment. So you're talking about people that everybody who came from Dominican Republic, at that time, pretty sure stopped at my aunt's house, at least for a week or whatever until they got a job, because she was that kind of person. She was like the person that everybody used to come from the DR and be like, okay, we're gonna go to Tommy's house because she's gonna support us, she's gonna help us. So going back to losing the opportunity, right? I go back to do whatever, and you know, I see this ad in the paper. Remember, everybody used to read the paper before. I don't really read the paper no more, but I see this ad in the paper.
I do
and it's
remember the
like
paper.
YWCA after school program.
Okay.
And I'm like, oh, after school program, that sounds cool.
Right.
I could do my thing and then go to the after school program. So I go to the interview, and you know, they give me an interview, whatever. And I tell this lady, I still remember her. I love her to death. Her name is Amy Keneally. I will always say that she gave me my second opportunity, but my first real career opportunity.
Okay.
And after the interview, I'm leaving, and I'm like, by the way, if you don't give me this job, I'm gonna go back out there and do what I know how to do, and it's not good. By the time I got home, remember answering machines? Beep, and my answering machine is like, oh, we want you to come in for a second interview. And I was in my head, I was like, got it, you know? Yeah. And she was like, I'm gonna give you a chance. And I worked there, and it was like, it transformed me, working with young people, and at the time I was living a double life, right? I was doing this positive thing during the daytime, but in the evening I was doing some other stuff that we ain't gonna talk about. And I ran into a young person as I was doing some negative stuff, and it really, it touched me. It's in a way that it was like, I can't be doing this.
Yeah.
Can't be doing this.
Push you to grow.
And I said, okay, I'm gonna do my thing, and I stayed working at the Y. I started working at the Y with the kids 5 years, and then 4 years. One day the CEO goes, "You want to learn about domestic violence?" I'm like, "What the hell I want to learn about domestic violence from?" I'm a young guy. I'm like, "That don't happen to men." And I was like, "Hey, what the heck? Free training? Let's do it."
Yeah.
And it was so interesting to me that it was all back on us. You know, men's violence against everybody,
without question,
like even onto other men, even to children,
That's
even
right.
to animals, and that really, like, I got to do something to help this, and it was awesome. I mean, I learned a lot. I helped a lot of people. The YW helped me grow, and then I met Carol Island, and that's another person that I love her. She's my second mom. Another opportunity, right? I always tell people, if it wasn't for opportunities and chances that other people gave me, I probably wouldn't be sitting the way that I'm sitting right now. Because when I met Carol, it was just like, oh, I'm going to go do like regular things. I'm going to work. I'm going to go do a presentation at the high school. And she was like, I need you here. You know how she is. I need you here. And I'm like, word, I always wanted to work in a school. Like, oh, Mr. Polanco, can you imagine that? And I'm like, oh, crap.
So you go from a part-time supportive role at the Y.
Then I go full-time at the Y doing domestic violence work.
Full-time at the Y.
Then I get recruited by Carol to come to Haverhill Public Schools.
Workforce development, pay attention. There's nuggets right there. Look at, so I want to show you this. YWCA, just to support what he was saying over here in Haverhill in 1990, 91. Look at it. Bang.
That's funny.
It's funny, yeah. So I was in the Y. So I got to give the Y props.
Yes.
Right? For whatever it is they were out there trying to do. I also wanted to say this, right? Because we're talking about domestic violence, and I wanna kind of use this as a time to address certain things that just ain't okay, and you work in the space so you could either validate what I'm saying or challenge me. So first of all, I believe that when a person starts calling another female or another person a derogatory name, that's a first step towards leading towards violence. So when you start calling a girl a B word, or you start calling a girl a promiscuous woman, right? You're starting to down this journey of like devaluing a person to make them feel like they're nothing. So eventually you can assault them. So I tend to, like, people tend to be like, oh, he's always serious. Because someone might say in a setting, oh, she's a this or she's a that. And I'll be like,
we ain't doing that.
We're not doing that.
Yep.
So can you explain to people that I'm actually, when I'm doing that, I'm not like, would you consider me doing that? being like high and mighty,
No,
or not being able to take a joke.
I think you're absolutely right, right? And I think that there's not enough of us that would check that in our own circles, right? And I've come to the point that I'm like, I think it's important for us and to speak up, especially when you're using the derogatory language towards anybody. Never mind a woman,
Right.
but towards anybody,
Right.
no matter what the context is, because you don't know how that person is feeling. You don't know how that person is doing. That person can be somebody who's very sensitive, right? And have an issue with that, and maybe it could cause depression. And there's all kinds of stuff, right? But you're right. It's the root of domestic violence. It begins in the language that you use, right? But even more than the language is the thoughts that you have, because you're thinking about what you're gonna say before you say it. I don't buy that thing that people I just said that. No, you thought about it before you said it. So you consciously said that thing. Maybe you didn't want to hurt somebody. You didn't think somebody was going to get hurt, but you said that thing already. And I think that that's what we got to be more aware of, is our thoughts before we speak what we're going to say. We got to make sure we think about it 3 times, because especially in those heated moments, because we all have those. We're freaking human. So like 2 humans in a relationship every day, seeing each other and spending time with each other, and you wake up together and you go to sleep together and all that, you're going to have some issues sometimes. Is how you go about it, right? Because I can be angry or aggravated or whatever, and kind of be like, all right, I'm gonna take a little space. I'll be back. And it usually works, right? People are so afraid to walk away because that hurts your manhood. It's about ego. So I gotta have the last word. And especially us men. And I always tell guys, yeah, it's not always good to have the last word.
You think? No, but especially if you're going to marry. What I have learned, like, I think all women are different, but in some ways they're the same. And I think
people are different.
Right. A lot of people are different. But I think like there are people in relationships that communicate. And communication is like central to being in a good relationship with them.
Yeah, and the way you communicate
and
is
how
important.
You communicate. Well, and I think like we all have partners here too, right?
Yep.
So my point is, the success of your relationship. How much, like, if I was to be like, all right, this is the one skill I have to have, I think communication would be it.
Transparency, yeah.
So you say transparency?
Yeah. I know this, at least in my relationship. If I'm transparent, whether it's a horrible thing or a great thing, it's gonna go way better for me, because they love seeing. At least my wife, her name is Ruby, by the way. She loves the honesty and just come straight out and tell me the thing, because I hate to find out something and then like somebody else told me that. And even work stuff, even like we have conversation about like we got a lot of stuff going on, and it's okay to say, yo, you know what? I hate I'm getting old. The other day I had a breakdown, right? I'm like, she was like, why you kind of snappy, yo? And I'm like, yo, I'm pissed. My back hurt. I got these pains. I go to the gym and it's working somewhat, but then I'm in pain, and I just hate being in pain. I feel like I'm getting old. And she was like, oh. See, if you didn't tell me that, I thought you were just being like,
attitude towards her.
Correct. And then she goes, so it's not anything I'm doing. I said, no, I'm so sorry that that's what I was projecting. So now I gotta be more mindful. It's like, dude, why you being like that? Like, it's normal. We're gonna get old. We're gonna have these pains. Yeah. But it's aggravating because I'm like an active guy, and you know what? I wanna maintain myself. But you know, as you start to age, things start to fall apart, right? You gotta oil up stuff. But I think that one of the most beneficial parts also for my relationship is that open line of communication also that comes along with transparency. Like, we communicate, we talk about stuff, really important. And I think that a lot of men hold things inside. And that affects our mental health. And I mean, if you want to talk about what a perfect concoction for domestic violence is, mental health, and then not knowing how to communicate.
Yeah, and the other thing I just want to throw out, and I know Mike, I can feel the whole co-host vibes. I can tell when Mike's got a question too. I wanted to ask about, like, this other thing is loyalty, right? A lot of beefs get started, and a lot of relational fights get started over this idea of someone is has to be loyal to you, and if they're not, it starts with the name calling again to devalue, which leads to violence.
Mm-hmm.
This is another thing I try to challenge, right? Because it's like, for me, right, I feel anyone I choose to be with, right, that is my choice.
Correct.
So that's where the accountability starts with me. Like anything that if I choose, me and Mike I chose to co-host this with him. So if Mike ended up doing something that I was like, oh, he's not loyal. It's not that he's not loyal. He's making a decision as a free person.
Correct.
And I can feel that, the decisions he's making are not loyal, right, to me. But that doesn't mean that you get to now name a person not loyal, call them not human, and start to treat them like some you get what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
People just flip a switch.
Yeah, I think another thing too, and
have you seen that, or is this just me? So that's the other thing I want to ask. Is that just me?
Well, I don't think it's just you, but maybe it's or for lack of better words, like a subculture type thing. Like you're speaking about this in terms of maybe your lived experience. Like I think of when you mention loyalty, I'm thinking, okay, it's a trust issue. Because I don't really understand. Like I don't fully understand that. Like I don't necessarily need to worry about.
Great, I can give context. In the work we do, we sit with a bunch of people that the commonality of their problem is they got into a physical fight with their loved one or partner, and now it's spiraling to other decisions. You know what? I just want to either take my life or hurt somebody or quit or do drugs. What I'm sharing is the commonality of this one thing, that if you do this work, it keeps popping up, right? She wasn't loyal. She ain't a loyal la. So that's what
she don't hold me down.
That what gave me permission to strike her.
All right, so maybe I'm still kind of ignorant of this. Can you like expound on that? Like, what is this loyal? Like, what is loyalty?
By your side, no matter what. Right, wrong, indifferent.
She slept with someone?
Well,
maybe?
no, you're giving examples, but maybe I'm not explaining this the right way. What is the root of that? Does that make more sense?
Well,
like,
this is the respect factor too, right? See, if you're not loyal to me, you're being disrespectful.
But why is it important to have that?
Because men base everything off of respect. If you listen,
I think like so people it could be who knows? It could be abandonment. It could be mental health. It could be manipulation.
Right.
But the commonality is, my point is that I'm saying is, whatever the reason is, I want to break that craziness of to me, which is, that's not the reality. A person isn't loyal to you, right? Like a person, everybody's free to make their own decisions.
Right.
And you can't start because something isn't right to you, naming a person to be like you're starting to create a strategic way of hurting someone in your mind, and people don't see it connected. I think it is connected. I think, and I'm saying the people that are doing it might not understand they're doing it. That's the point of
that's the whole
point. They don't understand it, but it is a very step-by-step process. First, I'm going to lift up a universal value, loyalty. And I'm going to say, you're not that. Now, because you're not that, now you're these other names that I give you, the B word, prostitute, we hear them all. Yeah. And then after that, once everyone chimes in and agrees, now I can strike you. I can have you in a home, and you don't believe you can get out of that. So that's like the work we do is in the intersection of all that, seeing that and be like, no. You're not going to,
And it's different.
And it's different for everyone.
Yeah, I was gonna say,
but that's a common theme.
It looks different for everybody, but and the root of it is also not knowing how to manage this instinct to snap, right? And a lot of us, as men, and we have this fight. I don't even say flight. I think we have the first instinct is fight. I'm defending myself, and it's almost like you don't need to defend yourself. Like, let's have this conversation. That's much harder than for me to argue with my wife. Like, when I sit down and be like, yo, what's going on? Like we have this, I don't know, we have some kind of a disagreement, and we sit down and we talk calmly about it. It just goes much further than me dictating the conversation. And I think that's about power, right? And we know that domestic violence situations are about power and control. That's all. Power and control. You use everything to have power over and control over. And that is a key thing there.
Where do you think that's all rooted in?
I
So
don't. So this is maybe part of my ignorance because I'm not. Okay. So you guys obviously have knowledge. Yeah, you have knowledge and education in domestic violence. So you have a basis to have this conversation.
So I would say we have him even more than me. So we have a spectrum of knowledge.
But I don't.
Mhm.
So you're saying this to me, right? And then also I don't feel I have, if you will, the attributes of someone who might commit domestic
Correct.
violence or need to have that loyalty. So I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm like devoid of this knowledge,
So
this experience. To
that's
me, it
good,
makes no
though.
sense.
That's good because, like, for someone like you that might feel like this is attached to your public safety. So as you start working with young people, right, and you start seeing these extreme behaviors, you start trying to support them, right? But as you support them, you end up understanding that what they really are looking for is balance of their own, right? And it usually leads back to their upbringing, like our upbringing, right? In areas where people need to grow and things need to be fixed, but it's complex because some of these communities, to your point, don't have the resources and other stuff. And the other point where I was saying where it's rooted, right, where it gets kind of crazy, is when you see a lot of force and demand, where is that role modeled, right? So, like, my point is when police historically have come into the community to cause order, was their approach listening? Was their approach role modeling the behaviors they want to see? Or was it coming in and creating a construct of justice and everything is very aggressive and that gets replicated? I learned that from my time incarcerated, right? Like I'm a loud speaker and I could never understand when I call Jimmy, come down. And then that happens in normal phone houses. But I realized incarcerated, they would always scream my name. Everett, visit. So subconsciously growing up as a second grade to 26, a lot of the male role models were either incarcerated people or professional correctional people. So both of those things are not pretty productive, and I've gone through therapy to work all that. But I'm just saying, like, a lot of the behaviors we see in the community were learned.
Correct. And that's the exact point, right? We were exposed to this behavior that's been normalized since the day we've been born, right? You're born, boys don't cry. You gotta be tough. The only emotion you show is anger, right? Like, men, we don't do this thing over here. We do this thing, and it's the bravado, it's the machismo, and these are learned behaviors, right? You gotta be a womanizer. You got to do all these other things that maybe even you're not comfortable with sometimes. But you do it because it's you got to fall in line, because if not, you're not a man. And then
Here
people
it
start
goes
calling
again.
you all these other, when you're not in the box, people start calling you all these names because society has created this box for us.
Yeah, to some extent, there are some universals, right? Like the one you just mentioned, like men don't cry or boys don't cry. But the one thing I've been thinking as you guys have been saying this, and once again referring to my own ignorance, maybe I'm privileged. You think that could be a possibility? Like, I've always lived in an environment where it never was an issue.
I mean, if you come from a home with two parents and they have a healthy relationship, and that's what you see every single day, and the environment around your home also is the same, you're pretty much probably gonna have a pretty positive outcome in whatever relationship you get yourself involved in, because that's all you're seeing. But when you're listening to it, when you're watching it on TV, it's violence, violence on violence on violence on violence on violence, what are you gonna do?
Yeah, but let me throw this out here. There's a difference between watching it on TV and living it. And I'm saying this because there's a bunch of people that used to drive into the community like we're Disneyland. Like, I'm gonna experience the ride. And then I'm gonna go back to my safe house, which is like, there's, you know what I'm saying? And that's the thing. Like, that's because I'm an artist, and that's why I'm saying this. I, as an artist, have seen people that through the art feel like, oh, I'm living this life. Because they hear the music, they see what's portrayed, and in their mind, they're like, I'm dealing with the suffering of growing up in Lawrence, being in a gang fight against these other
Yeah,
dudes. No,
yeah.
you are
No,
not.
you're not.
So
No, you are not.
I want to piggyback on that. So do you feel that there is a group of people who they feel like they need to be in proximity of that to feel like they're
Of course,
something?
to feel validated,
Yeah.
right?
Without
Because if
question.
you're portraying this image of this gangster, let's say, for lack of a better word, you need to surround yourself around that or be in close proximity of it.
Yeah.
But you don't necessarily need to be the one who actually did that stuff. You might have known some people, right? And this gives you the validation because you know these couple of people. And then when you hear somebody saying, "Oh, this person is involved with this and that, or was involved with this and that," and you're like, "Wait a minute, that's not actually true, right?" It's all for the benefit of revenue, right? And to each his own. Whatever you want to do is going to do. But what happens is what we're seeing, especially with a lot of even some semi-famous people, is like they're getting themselves into problems because they're saying things that are not true. And then the real guys are approaching them.
Without question.
Do you think in the situation with these people who are basically, they're kind of like showmen, right? Or showwomen.
Yep.
I don't want to be sexist about
Correct.
this. Do you feel or do you believe that that kind of activity or behavior could lead to domestic violence within those individuals?
I do, yes. I'm sorry.
Absolutely. Because sometimes I think that what happens is that you start to actually emulate the thing,
Yes.
right? You're already thinking it. You're already saying it. What's left is the action, right? So, and domestic violence looks different. Domestic violence is not just hitting somebody with your hands. You know, there's many levels of domestic violence. So maybe you don't hit that person, but you're constantly putting that person down. You're constantly making that person feel insecure. You isolate that person. That person, you guys move to like, I don't know, somewhere far away and they stay home and you don't bring them out. That's part of the power and control structure in the domestic violence situation. So a lot of times people think domestic violence is like, oh, he beats up his wife. No. Because a guy will tell you, like, even a survivor, man or woman, there's been a situation where I've heard that he never touched me. But all these other things have happened, right?
Can I ask you a question? So I'm assuming people are gonna look at this and be like, wow, these are all interesting conversations. And some people might even see areas where like, wow, I need more information about this. So if, let's say I was in a violent relationship where I was causing domestic violence and I wanted to do better, I call up to you, what do I even say?
So I think one of the things you gotta do first is do a self-assessment for yourself and take accountability, right? Then pick up the phone. And then you could there's a program that we have. It's called the Intimate Partner Abuse Program. And you could call Jeannie Geiger Crisis Center. You could send me an email, and I'll put you in contact with the right people. Our program is 40 weeks long. Usually court mandated. Very few guys do that, and I wish that wasn't true. I wish that more guys would be like, I
volunteered.
Yeah.
So most of it is because the court
ordered. Very few times I've heard that a dude will come and commit to a 40-week program, and you have to pay for it. But it's the point of it's not even just the program. It's not to reoffend, right? Because then you see sometimes these men cycle through programs, and it's not because the program's not beneficial. It's because sometimes you got to remove yourself from that environment too. Sometimes just the relationship itself is toxic. But if you can't come to terms with that, that makes it more difficult to remove yourself from that. And we have to take more accountability. I mean, I wish that I could tell you different that, I got tons of guys that come to the program and they volunteer. They'll come to a one-shot deal.
Right.
So we got to figure out, my whole thing in this whole, my whole journey right now is about figuring out how can we have some kind of a shortened version of intimate partner abuse programming that could be for volunteer-based type of situations.
Yeah.
That doesn't exist, at least in our ecosystem right now.
And can we talk about like how hard it is starting new projects with the funding kind of scenario you're under now? And
it's really difficult because it's almost like it's a reflection of societies that there's the haves programs or nonprofits, and then there's the have-nots.
Right.
Right. So it's hard because it's like everybody's competing against these big entities
Right.
who usually get the bulk of the funding, right? And then the guys or women or people who are doing this work on the grassroots level, we kind of get left behind because it's like, well, we just gave this X entity $35 million, and here you go, we're gonna give you 50,000, and you're like, what am I gonna do with that?
Yeah, I really love this show because like by you just sharing the story of Lawrence and we kind of tied, right? Like how gang culture is kind of seated in law enforcement, right? Like
Correct.
not all the way, but my point is like a lot of the gang stuff that came after the response of the stealing cars.
Mm-hmm.
So the stealing
Yeah, we
cars
had a
happened.
chief that came in from New York in 90, I want to say like, I don't know, between 93 and 96. He came in and he came with the strong hand.
Right.
Right? So then it became like us against them.
Right.
Right? Dudes throwing bottles at police cars. I never thought that we would do that. Right?
Mm.
When I was a young guy, I kind of respected. I wanted to be a cop at one point. I was like, oh, that looks cool. Like, I'll be a cop.
Right.
But then how did we get from wanting to be a cop to throwing bottles at those dudes? Because they were coming with the strong hand. Paddy wagons were a thing. Like, they round us up and put those in the paddy wagon.
Well, I would think and we only have about 4 minutes left now, but I would think actually, because you've addressed it earlier in our conversation, that they addressed the problem in the complete wrong way, right?
Correct.
It's more than coming in with a heavy hand and being very punitive. It was they really need to come in with resources and identify the reasons why you guys were doing these things, as opposed to saying, no, we just don't want you to do these things.
And I will say there's a balance though. I will say like you can't not have a heavy hand because some of us do spiral and become really dangerous to ourselves, to everyone, and you need that thing. But to the point, that being like the go-to, they cause way more harm. And because we only have time, I do want to say that like the impact of what you're doing, meeting people where they are, we will acknowledge there are still some people that reject and still the problem. But aren't there a lot of people that once they get the information, they're able to kind of gradually start moving towards a better way?
No, they see things with a different lens, right?
Right.
And that's super helpful when you kind of get clarity and you see things with a different lens. Before we go, I wanted to point out that Haverhill did have it right at one point. Haverhill Police Department, Dennis and I and Carol and a bunch of us from VIP were involved with this thing called the Youth Police Dialogues.
Yes.
And I think that was probably the most absolute perfect situation for our city, that if it was followed up with more resources and more youth police dialogues, we probably would have not been in the situation that came after that with all the deaths that happened with our young people from gang violence here in Haverhill. And I want to acknowledge that because I a lot of people right now, we all know that Haverhill's going through some stuff, but like they also did some good stuff, and we can't forget about that.
Well,
our community came together, and things are going to happen in community. And like, how do we start to do that repair work? And I think that Dennis and I have been involved in some stuff, but also like the community needs to stand up.
Yes.
Yep. So, I mean, the way I see it, it boils down to several factors, and some of it is literally based off your life, right? You need to have opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
You need to have resources. You need to have good community. And you, most importantly, you just have to bring those things together and just be like kind of a loss of words here. Like you have to put all those things together and have the right mix, and then you'll see the benefit, you'll see the growth, you'll see the development. And one of the things that I kept thinking about is your goal there for domestic violence, trying to reduce that 40-week program down to like possibly one week,
Something.
maybe.
Yeah.
I think you're going to accomplishment, and it totally makes sense why you eventually got an award. You're going to get more awards over time. People are going to recognize that Andy's been doing this work for such a long time. He knows what he's doing. He has the right motivations, and I think the most important thing, the real recognition you're going to have, is when you start identifying other people like yourself,
Mm-hmm.
The youth, and then you're going to have more Andys in a way,
Yeah. It's funny because we started doing that, and like Andy Vargas came out of VIP, and it's just like we saw when he was 15 years old. This kid, he got it, and that's what we want to continue to do, right? And help grow the seed that we planted, and keep watering it. And that's what I'm here for. I'm here to water my brothers, and we're gonna grow to a really great thing. And I'm so hopeful, because if we don't have hope, then we have nothing.
I'm so excited for the next guest from Lawrence, where me and Mike are gonna say, all right, Andy, we interviewed you. Who's the next person from Lawrence? And don't tell him now. But for you to be like, this is the person that y'all need to have at your show. One, because that's a lot of how our show works.
Yeah.
People call us and tell us.
Yep.
But two, because like showing the vastness of the network that people are gonna meet, because getting to know you and now getting to know the people that you bring here and other people we know, people are gonna really get to know Lawrence. So, and that's dope. That's dope to think about, like, because going to Lawrence with knowing someone from there is completely different experience
Correct. Yeah.
than going there and not know anyone at all.
Yeah, you'll have a different experience.
You have a whole different experience, and it's wonderful.
Well, I just want to say thanks, guys. I appreciate the opportunity to come on your platform and like share. There's so much more that we can talk about. Hopefully in the future we can tap into some other subjects. I'm always available for y'all. This is great. I hope that this, well, and I don't hope, I know this is gonna blow up, because people are already chatting. Even your graphic, people like it. So congratulations. I appreciate y'all.
Yeah,
Thank you so much. Appreciate you. All right. Good show. That was good. Huh? Yeah.